What's going on, my friends, and welcome to this edition of MLB Tonight, presented by Evan Williams-Bourbon. It's your girl, LG Red, Lauren Gardner, here in the hot seat. To my right is Dan Plesac. Dan, all the excitement of the World Series is officially behind us, but if you're not baseball fans, because the hot stove is about to fire up, free agency officially begins on Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
It is the first Sunday of the offseason. It's like, where did this season go? Great postseason. World Series is over. Dodgers fans are happy. Yankees fans, not so much.
Not so happy. We'll have a little bit more on some of the pending free agents here in just a second. But some news just broke a little bit earlier today out of Kansas City as the Royals agreed to a 3-year extension with starter Michael Wacha with a club option for 2028. Now, the new contract begins in 25, replacing his current 2-year deal. The 33-year-old's new contract can be worth up to $72 million throughout the term of this deal. And Dan, this is going to be the first time, hard to believe, since 2019 that Wacha will get to stay with an organization for multiple seasons.
Yeah, this was a great free agent signing. They did two at the same time. They brought in Seth Lugo. He had a marvelous year. I thought he brought stability, that starting rotation. You have a couple of young guys in Brady Singer and Cole Reagans. Surprised a lot of people. They've got one of the most exciting players in Bobby Witt Jr. You take a look at this rotation. It's good. And what I like about it, there's some pitchability in there. You have Lugo and Walker, two older established guys. You've got Kyle Wright, Alec Marsh, Cole Reagans at the top. 2024 was his breakout season. I expect him to get really better. The Royals will be competitive next year because their pitching is solid.
Yeah, knocked out of the DS by those Yankees that you just mentioned earlier. And it's kind of nice to see, if you're a Kansas City fan, that some of those key players in the rotation, Lugo, Reagans, and Singer, will remain with the team. Now Wacha, who brings a veteran presence to this club as well.
It is, and it's a team that surprised a lot of people this year.
Yeah.
Listen, they gave the Yankees all they can handle. They play a lot of close games. Their bullpen got better towards the end of the season. And I think this is what's a thing to come, because I think that AL Central is very winnable. You could throw the Tigers, had a great finish to the season. The Guardians, super strong team. But I think the Royals are in the mix.
Yeah, don't sleep on the Twins either. It ended up being a sneaky fun division to watch. And, of course, we saw a lot of those teams make it into the postseason. Second best starting rotation in baseball, the Kansas City Royals. And they will continue to stay strong going into the 2025 season. Are you a fan of The Clash?
Yes.
Me too.
Okay.
That's a little bit of a throwback. So should I stay or should I go? We're going to play a little game
of
some upcoming free agents. Should they stay or should they go? Per this tweet from Mark Feinsand, the Yankees' deadline on Gerrit Cole's decision is now on Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Yes, that does coincide with the end of MLB's quote-unquote quiet period. New York has to decide whether to add a 5th year at $36 million to the 4 years of $144 he had remaining on his deal, or allow him to become a free agent. Here we go.
He's going nowhere. He came out with a sign when he was a youngster growing up in Southern California, and his children had a sign during the World Series. Listen, he's where he wants to be. He's a New York Yankee. He's been the ace of the staff, 2023 reigning Cy Young Award winner. Was fabulous in Game 5, that 5th inning that fell apart on the Yankees. They're going, that says it all. Yankee fan today, tomorrow, forever. There's no chance that they let Gerrit Cole slip away. They need him now just as much as the Yankees as he needs the Yankees.
Yeah, listen, I love the Arts and Crafts project. It would be a real shame to have to cross out forever. And it's kids. I mean, I'm sure that's hanging in their bedroom somewhere.
And you know, it's not an easy place to play either. The bright lights of New York, some guys have a difficult time making the adjustment.
Yeah.
It's been a simple adjustment for Gerrit Cole. Started the year on the IL, had some issues with that elbow. A little bit up and down. He pitched very well in the month of September. He was very good in the postseason, and it is what it is. I mean, with a sub 3.5 ERA, you know, he's at the top list. One thing you know, prior to this year, spending some time on the IL, he's going to take the ball back in his days with the Pirates. He posts up every 5 days. The moment isn't too big. He was great in that elimination game in Game 5 where he was pitching for his life, that crazy 5th inning, but he came back and pitched well into the 7th inning. And when they needed him the most, he stepped up in the 6th, getting it into the 7th.
Hey, listen, you're the expert, but in my humble opinion, having covered the ALCS and being around that team, could anyone else have handled that 5th the way Gerrit Cole did and then come out in the 6th without a mound visit?
No. And the one thing that he has, and you can't teach that, he has pitchability. And he's a different pitcher than he was when he came up with the Pirates, right? First-round pick, overall out of UCLA. He was more of a sinker, two-seam guy, threw the curveball, the slider. He added, when he got traded to the Astros, he added that four-seam fastball up in the zone. That changed his entire game around. To me, him and Jacob deGrom, when deGrom's healthy, they're the best two pitchers in baseball. With the exception, put Tarek Skubal in that mix right now. But he has a four-seam fastball he can ride up. And in Game 5, that's the best I've seen him look mechanically since he hurt the elbow. He was effortless 95 to 97. He touched 98, 99. Almost pitched out of a jam. Bases loaded, nobody out. Struck out Lux, struck out Ohtani. Then that squibber that went to first base off the bat of Mookie Betts. He was so close from getting out of that. And I really believe this. If they don't botch that fifth inning up, the Yankees win Game 5, and they're going to go out to L.A. for Game 6.
Would they won Game 6?
I don't know if they would have won Game 6. Dodgers were a better team.
Yeah, that was it ended a little bit earlier than I think a lot of baseball fans would have liked. Let's transition over to his teammate Juan Soto. I don't even think he was able to get in the shower before reporters were asking him where he would end up. Him and his agent Scott Boras said they are open to hearing offers from all 30 teams. Dan, does he stay or does he go?
No, I think he's going to the highest bidder. I don't have any inside information what's going on in the Bronx, but I will say this. I think it's going to be hard for the Yankee brass to have a guy that's going to significantly make more money than Aaron Judge. Like, Aaron Judge is the captain of this team. I'm not going to say in a disappointing way, but literally that game wasn't a half hour over, and he was basically said, I'm going to listen to all takers. I'm going to see what's out there. And to me, that means he's going to chase the highest dollar amount. Where that's going to come from, I don't know. I know the Giants have money they want to spend. The Mets obviously have money that they want to spend. You can never count a team out like the Cubs if they wanted to do something crazy. Even the Dodgers, if there was a big contract with some deferred payments, he's going to have a handful of suitors, and he brings something that a lot of teams don't have. He's a game changer when he stands there in the bat.
Yeah, he really is. I've been hearing rumors that the number will start with a 7.
It's more than likely what it's going to take.
Hard to believe, but that's Shohei Ohtani money, and if you look at his WAR, that's what he brings to the table. Reportedly, 11 teams in the mix, including those New York Mets. Speaking of the Mets, Pete Alonso, should he stay or should he go? I heard all sorts of things from Mets fans about the contract offer during the postseason.
I'd love to see him stay in a Mets uniform, Lauren, but I don't think that he is. And this is a simple reason why. He's really a first baseman / DH. Mark Vientos burst onto the scene. He was their best hitter in the postseason. Vientos has some difficulty at third base. I think an easy transition for Vientos would be to go to first base. You've got that big bat. And I think if you go by what David Stern's track record was with Milwaukee, I don't necessarily think they're going to try to build around one guy. They already have one of those guys in Francisco Lindor. There's going to be a lot of suitors for Pete Alonso. I get it. You know, he took a lot of criticism during the year. He is on the struggle bus for a big part of it. But you go back to Game 3 in Milwaukee, that was arguably the biggest hit of the season for the Mets. There are a lot of teams that need what he does. It's hard to get a guy that hits 30 home runs, knocks in 100 runs. This year it was 88 runs. Listen, the average is what it is, but it's not easy to hit 34 home runs. There are a lot of teams that are looking for offense. To me, he'd look good in a Mariners uniform. They struggled to score runs, so he's going to have some takers. And then you look at the Houston Astros. They had some issues at first base, so there are going to be enough teams that are going to drive the price up. But my gut feeling says they're going to move Vientos from third to first.
Vientos also a postseason darling there for the Mets. 226 career home runs for Pete Alonso. That's third most in Mets history, only behind Darryl Strawberry and David Wright. So Mets fans, I know they gave him his flowers towards the end of that run because I don't know if they were anticipating him returning to the Mets in 2025. You were talking about Milwaukee and then Corbin Burnes, of course, his former team. Let's move on to Baltimore. Will he stay or will he go? Because, in my opinion, I think he turned into the ace that Baltimore needed.
I think he stays. And I think if you're the Orioles, if it's within reason, you have to do all you can do to bring him back. Look at the 15 wins, the ERA of 2.92. Struggled a little bit in the month of August. Turned it back around in the month of September. He was terrific. Unfortunately, he matched up against Tarek Skubal in Game 1. He pitched brilliantly, gave up 1 run, but that was 1 run too many. You look at the back end of that Orioles starting rotation, love their everyday players. They have a stable of young players that are the envy of baseball. They have a whole nother stable down in the minor leagues. But they don't have what it takes to win in the AL East in that starting pitching.
Yeah.
If they lose him, they better get on the bus to try to find somebody to replace him. I think he stays with the Orioles.
Expectations are sky high, obviously, for the O's, especially in this division and all the talent that they have. But we were talking rotation. Even if they hang on to Burnes, what other pieces do they need with that pitching staff?
They need pitching, and more pitching. Because really, I mean, if you look at what they were doing the last month and a half of the season, what looked like it was going to be a strength, Grayson Rodriguez spent a lot of time on the IL.
Yeah.
They were hoping for big things from him. Zach Eflin, they wouldn't have, I don't even know if they would have made the wild card. Well, they had such a substantial lead over the Royals and the Twins. But until they acquired Zach Eflin, he was a stabilizing force. The 1-2 punch of Eflin and Burnes was all they had basically in that starting rotation. So I think they're going to try to keep them.
Yeah, their offense cannot just keep them afloat.
Correct.
Okay, so we talked about how the Tigers knocked them out. We also saw some surprising moves in the wild card there. An upset as the Astros were knocked out in the wild card, obviously unable to get to their 8th consecutive championship in the postseason. So here we go. Alex Bregman, who spent all 9 seasons in Houston, 7-time All-Star. Does he stay, Dan, or does he go?
I think he's going to go because something tells me that he's looking for another mega deal, something bigger than what he's made already. And I don't know if the Astros are looking to tie that kind of money up on a guy like that. I don't want to say towards the back end of his career, but when you start getting in your 30s, you kind of look at a long-term contract, and you have to look at as how many good years are we going to get on the back end of a long-term contract, right? He's a winning player. He could play in a lot of different teams. He's going to have a lot of people courting him to try to get him to go. Something tells me that somebody's going to be a higher bidder other than the Astros.
Oh, man, don't tell that to his teammate, Jose Altuve.
I know.
Did you hear his quote following their elimination game? As we take a look here, in my mind, there's not a chance. This is his last game. He gave a lot to this organization, so it's time for us as an organization to pay him back and make him stay here. Altuve, stand up for his
he
guy.
might have to break out his checkbook himself and help Jim Crane write out that big check. But it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yes, it certainly will. Well, we're going to step aside here on this edition of MLB Tonight. We just played a little stay or go, but for the players who might be going where they're going, yeah, MLB.com Mark Feinsand joins us next to throw out some potential fits.
MLB Tonight is brought to you by Evan Williams.
Well, there will be some fans throwing fits if their team doesn't land their favorite free agent as we bring in our own Mark Feinsand, MLB insider, who just came out with an article on MLB.com on the top 25 free agents this offseason. And he is going to throw out some good fits for these free agents. So here we go, Mark. We'll eventually get back to some of the names we didn't talk about earlier in the show, but we have to start, of course, with Juan Soto. The question the whole baseball world is waiting on, where is he going to end up?
Well, I think there's a better than average chance that he's going to wind up in New York. The question is, with which team? Obviously, I think he enjoyed his time with the Yankees, but Soto and his agent Scott Boras have been waiting for this day where they can be a free agent and potentially break some records. And excuse me, I don't know that he's going to break the $700 million record that Shohei Ohtani set last year. But if you take the deferrals into account, Ohtani's deal was worth $460 million present day. Soto's going to blow that away. The question is it going to be 10 years, $500 million, or are we talking 12 years, $600 million? Who knows? This is going to be a huge contract. Steve Cohen of the Mets, if he decides he wants Soto, I think they have to be viewed as front runner. But the Yankees are going to have a say in this. The Nationals, I think, are going to maybe try to bring him back. And the Giants have been looking for that big free agent for a number of years. Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, Yamamoto. They haven't been able to sign those guys. Maybe they make a huge play for Soto.
Yeah, it feels to me like Boras and his team will go for the record. Let's go ahead and stay in the AL East here. Anthony Santander is coming off an amazing 44-homer season that saw him as an all-star for the first time in his career. Mark, what's a good fit for the 30-year-old switch hitter?
Well, I think right now you have to look at a team like the Cardinals, potentially. Obviously, they need some offensive help. They're in a sort of a rebuilding phase, but not one that they're expecting is going to last years and years here. This is a team that doesn't necessarily go through the 5-year rebuild. The Guardians would be a perfect fit for him. I don't know if they have the money for him. The Phillies are in a watch. There's been some talk about them potentially trading Nick Castellanos, which would open up right field for a guy like Santander. So the Phillies, I think, they need to do something with that lineup. Get a little fewer guys who chase. Santander could be a good fit there. I would love to see him stay in Baltimore, but they have so many problems and they have other concerns they have to take care of. I don't think he winds up staying there.
Yeah, sneaky good slugger there, Mark, as you see the 2024 MLB home run leaders just behind Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge, a few ahead of Juan Soto. Moving on to Blake Snell, who opted out of his contract with the Giants and will head to free agency. Now, the two-time Cy Young winner is coming off of a 3.12 ERA over 104 innings. Now, we know everyone would want someone like that in their rotation, but where, Mark, is the best fit?
Well, we would have thought everybody would have wanted him in their rotation last year after he won that second Cy Young award, and he struggled through free agency. I think there's a chance he goes back to the Giants. He had a really good second half after a rocky and injury-riddled first half this year. Perhaps there's a way for him to work something out with San Francisco. I think the Rangers are a team that could look at him. They're going to have some holes in their rotation to fill. The Yankees could potentially, if Gerrit Cole doesn't come back, and right now that's still a question mark, they're going to be looking for somebody to top that rotation. So a number of teams, the Dodgers are always in the mix for these big free agents. The question is Snell going to be able to find the long-term deal that he's been looking for and that he couldn't find a year ago? It's going to be really interesting, not coming off the Cy Young season, but yet coming off a really good second half, whether he can find that multi-year deal that escaped him a year ago.
Yeah, he went out and shoved in that second half once he settled in. Now, in terms of shortstops, Willy Adames is the top free agent available this offseason at just 29 years old. Where's the best fit for him as he gets ready for his 8th year in the bigs? Hard to believe it's been 8 years.
Well, I think the best fit for him is the Dodgers. They've had interest in him for a long time. There's a lot of talk about them potentially moving Gavin Lux this offseason, or just, they have a lot of who can fit in a lot of different places. Move those pieces around. Adames is a guy. Remember, Andrew Friedman, the president of baseball operations with the Dodgers, were together in Tampa Bay. There, and the Dodgers coming off the World Series, they probably don't have to go out and sign anybody big, but that's not the Dodger way. And if Adames is there at the right price, and they think they can add him, I think that's a good fit. Again, Cardinals are another team and could look at him. But unlike other years where we've had 2 or 3 or 4 big shortstops on the market, Adames is the cream of the crop. So any team that's looking to spend money on a shortstop, this is your guy.
Yeah, he has a lot of leverage going into this offseason. Pete Alonso's free agency has been getting a lot of press. But if you're not into Polar Bear, what about a potential fit for someone else in that first base market, maybe Christian Walker?
Yeah, Christian Walker, I think he would be as sought after as Alonso, except for the fact that he's, I think, 4 years older than him. He's 34 years old, so you're not necessarily looking at the same length of a deal, but for some teams that could be appealing. And there are plenty of teams that are going to need first base help this offseason. The Yankees just got rid of Anthony Rizzo after declining his option. The Astros were looking for first base help for most of the year. I think both those teams could be in the mix there for one of these guys. And if you don't want to sign Alonso to a longer-term deal, Walker can be had for fewer years. And he had every bit the year that Alonso had. He's one of the most hitters in the league.
Well, there are several questions this offseason, but one that has an easy answer is, of course, who's the best reliever available, Mark? That's Tanner Scott. So he wore an all-star uniform for the first time in 2024. But what uniform will he be wearing next year?
Here's the beauty of relievers. There are teams in the league, and every one of them needs a reliever. Even if you don't need a closer, you can use an eighth-inning guy. If you're willing to pay somebody closer money to eighth-inning guy, they're willing to listen. So the Phillies, the Yankees, the Blue Jays, these are teams that are going to need some bullpen help, among many others. Tanner Scott's going to have a big market, and I expect him to do quite well this offseason.
Yeah, that was a great midseason acquisition for A.J. Preller and the Padres. Okay, one more, and this one might be the biggest, so I hope you're prepared for this, Mark. Who is the best fit for this guy? Congratulations on your first ever Topps card.
Thank you very much. It's been very cool. I've had some friends who have pulled them out of boxes. My son pulled one out of a box, and I have one friend just keeping me abreast of how much they're going for on eBay. So see that they're somewhat in demand.
Oh, wow. Mark, congratulations. We're going to have to get that signed and up on the wall. Real quick, how much is it going on eBay? It's going to be at least like 100.
The autographs have gone between like 30 and 50. Which is probably about 25 to 45 more than I thought they would go for.
Hey, it's impressive nonetheless, and congratulations, Mark. Thank you so much. We're looking forward to your coverage here in free agency. Dan, we just heard from Mark here. What fits are best in your opinion?
Well, Anthony Santander, Tony Tanks, he's going to have a robust market. He had a monster year for the Orioles. And I think if Juan Soto doesn't sign back with the Yankees, a guy familiar with the American League East, guy that has power from both sides of the plate, and replacing a guy in right field, listen, Juan, you can say what you want about Soto with a bat, but he's at best an average outfielder. And I just think Santander brings a lot to what the Yankees, a lot of lineups will look. So it wouldn't surprise me if Soto departed, the Yankees were in on Santander. I think Willy Adames fits the Dodgers like a glove. One thing about Willy Adames, he posts up every single day. And I think as a manager, if you're Dave Roberts, you don't have to worry about moving guys around. It was kind of a rotating position since the departure of Corey Seager. And I know Tommy Edmonds played a little bit during the World Series. I think the Dodgers are looking for an everyday player. And if the price isn't too high, don't be surprised. To me, he is a classic target kind of player that the Dodgers would love to have in the mix.
And before they acquired Tommy Edman, Gavin Lux was obviously hurt. Mookie Betts, we saw him taking all those reps at short. So much fun to watch, but I'm sure Dodgers fans would love to see a full-time shortstop in L.A. Great picks there. And yeah, Anthony Santander, I think he has the disposition to handle the New York media. After the break, Dan unveils his top 10 free agent starting pitchers. Now, there's a lot to choose from, Dan, so you might get some people upset with these rankings. Welcome back to MLB Tonight, presented by Evan Williams, Bourbon, Lauren Gardner, and Dan Plesac here with you. Free agency officially begins on Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern. So let's do what you do best and break down the top 10 free agent starters going into this offseason.
We're going to start with number 10, Matthew Boyd. Heroic. Think about this. This guy in the month of June was showcasing, coming off of surgery, was looking for a big league job. Found a big league job with the Guardians. 11 starts, 8 during the regular season, 3 in the postseason. The numbers speak for themselves. Now, limited small sample size, 39 2/3 innings. But when he did pitch, he pitched effectively.
Yeah, he really did. And like you said, a 2.78 ERA in those 8 regular season starts. And what he did in the postseason, Dan, I think could secure his job probably with the Guardians, maybe $10 million.
And I think teams are looking at Matthew Boyd. They know now that he can pitch under pressure, right? He was several months removed from Tommy John surgery. The Guardians felt comfortable giving him the ball in 3 postseason games. He's up to stock.
I love that. That was his Christmas wish as he was throwing showcase games. It's so impressive. Who's in at number 9?
Jose Quintana, New York Mets. I think this is a guy that the Mets are going to have to try to lock up. He's not an overpowering guy in a day and age where we're all looking at the radar gun and spin rate and velocity and everything. He's a throwback to a pitcher. He's kind of a Tom Glavine kind of a pitcher. Moves the ball up, down, in and out. Great changeup. How about his final 9 starts of the year? 1 home run allowed. Look at that whip.
Wow.
1.07. Opponents average against 198. His stock is also going up. I think the Mets are going to try all they can do to keep him in the mix.
Yeah, he was exactly as advertised, especially in that playoff run. Who's in at number 8?
Shane Bieber. That guy, right? We've kind of
almost forgotten about him. Yeah.
Almost forgotten about him. He had Tommy John surgery in April. He only had 2 starts. Most guys, now not all, most guys come all the way back. Now, usually the first year back after Tommy John, you go through a little trial and error period, kind of like what Walker Buehler did this year coming back from his second Tommy John surgery. But this is a guy that posts up every 5 days. I think he's a guy that you could be near the front end of a rotation. On a really good team, he would be a great number 2 or number 3. He brings to the mix what a lot of people would like to have. He's consistent. And normally, when he's healthy, he takes the ball every 5 days.
Yeah, their GM, Chris Antonetti, said that the 29-year-old deserves to be a free agent. Of course, they'd love to be in the mix, but you never know what's going to happen. Who do you have at number 7?
Sean Manaea. I don't think there's a starting pitcher in the game of baseball whose stock went up more than his. Changed his arm angle. He's a low 3/4 arm angle, kind of a la Chris Sale. And what an improvement. Look at that record, 12-6. 181 2/3 innings. If you like the strikeouts, 9.1 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's gotten progressively better. You look at 2022, that ERA was 4.96. 2023 with Gigantes, 4.44. Last year with the Mets, 3.47. Declined in option his option, he's going to be wanted on the open market, especially with that change in his arm delivery. He's going to have a robust market.
Yeah, you mentioned his innings. That was a career high. He managed to stay healthy, and he was one of the best pitchers in baseball in the second half. Moving on to number 6.
Jack Flaherty. I know a lot of Tiger fans are like, what in the world? We could have used him in the month of October, right? The Tigers went on this crazy run with 3 weeks left in the season. They had Tarek Skubal and not a whole lot else after that. Jack Flaherty, his stock went up. He had a rough start in Game 5 of the World Series. But I think if you give him the right amount of rest, I don't think he's the guy that he was with the St. Louis Cardinals, 97, 98, with an electric breaking ball. But I think he's a very serviceable starting pitcher. There's going to be a market for what he does. One thing he has done, if you're looking for a guy that looks healthy, he looks healthy right now. And with that in play, he's going to get some offers.
He's dealt at the deadline of each of the last 2 seasons. I'm sure for Jack, it'd be nice to stay in the same place. Who do we have at number 5?
Nick Martinez. This guy's a really an interesting guy to look at. He's got a big arm. He's kind of bounced back between the rotation and as a starter. And I think if you're looking for flexibility, 16 games as a starter, 26 games as a reliever, you look at the numbers, they probably add up a little bit better as a reliever. But he's one of those dual threat kind of guys, a guy that you could use that could cover some innings in the 7th, 8th, and even the 9th inning. I'm not sure if he wants to be a starting pitcher, but he's done both, and he's done both well. There's going to be a good market for him.
He was one of those great stories of a player that went overseas. He played in Japan for 4 seasons, came back, and over the last 3 years, he got his game right, and here we are. He's probably looking for a big payday.
Yeah, he's going to look for a good-sized payday. The next guy on my list is Max Fried. Very interesting pitcher. When he's healthy, you could make a case he's one of the top 4 or 5 left-handed starting pitchers in the game of baseball. Spent a good amount of time on the IL, but when he's healthy, there's no question he's a top-of-the-rotation starter. I'm not sure if the Braves are going to be all in to try to bring him back. The thing that's a little bit of a concern, you look at the innings in 2022, 185 in the third, a drop-off in 2023. But if you look at the whip, gradually a little bit higher, going to be a robust market for Max Fried. When he's healthy, you could pencil him in. He's one of the top 5 left-handed starters in the game.
And what stands out to me is his ERA around 3 over the past 5 years. So consistent is Max 3. Okay, here we go. Top 3, starting in at number 3.
Kikuchi of the Astros started the season with the Toronto Blue Jays. You know, he's one of these guys now that, like, the sabermetric community really loves this guy. Good four-seam fastball, sneaky good velo, too. 95 to 96, good breaking ball. And when he was acquired by the Astros, he was really good. They made some changes in his pitch shaping and repertoire, a little bit more fastball usage. Look at the difference of the splits between the Astros and the Toronto Blue Jays. That ERA 4.75 down to 2.70 when he put on an Astros uniform. K per 9 went up a little bit from 10.1 to 11.4. Everyone's looking for a left-hander that has swing and miss, and if that's what you're looking for, he's your guy.
And incorporating that slider, that thing was nasty. Okay, Dan, I think we all know who the top 2 are, but what's the order?
I'm going to go Blake Snell, number 2. You could make a case number 1. I think Blake Snell, I know he and his agent Scott Boras thought there would be a lot more of a robust market. He joined the Giants late, and I think one thing that we saw between he and Jordan Montgomery, you can go and throw and say, hey, you're in really good shape, but if you don't get the spring training and get about 3 or 4 weeks underneath your belt, it's hard to be ready. This guy is a terrific pitcher. Cy Young Award winner, 2-time Cy Young Award winner. You look at the ERA leaders, I mean, through July to the end of the season with 10 minimum starts, 1.23, swing and miss. I think one of the cool things a year ago, we had him on MLB Tonight. He came out and said, listen, I'm comfortable with who I am now. I'm never going to be Tom Glavine. I'm never going to be Greg Maddux. I'm not going to have 1.2 walks per 9 innings. Spraying the ball around a little bit is a little bit a part of his game. But when he's good, fastball, curveball, changeup combination. Remember, he was so good in that World Series against the Dodgers. There's going to be a big market for Blake Snell.
Yeah, he really was. And to watch him settle in like that in the second half. And I love your point about the interview where he said he just felt comfortable.
Yes, he's comfortable in his own skin now.
Yeah, that's so rare. Every time, so often we see guys try to be something other than who they actually are. Someone who's very comfortable in their own skin, number 1.
Yeah, that's Corbin Burnes. And listen, it could be 1 and 1A between he and Blake Snell. I just think that Corbin Burnes, he struggled a little bit in the month of August, but in September he put it back together. Look at that year, 15 and 9, 194 in the third innings pitched, ERA 2.92. Made the transformation early in his career. He was a starter, reliever. He and Brandon Woodruff, the Brewers, they'd start him, they put him in the bullpen. He's found a home as a starting pitcher, remade his game, picked up that cutter, and he's, in my opinion, he's the safest bet that you're going to get a guy, and he's going to give you between 30 and 35 starts a year. Okay. He's figured out how to use the cutter, the curveball. He's the real deal.
Yeah, he's brought it all together. It's hard to believe that you don't have two names on your list, but it is 2024. They both dealt with injuries. Here we go. Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander. Will they sign with the team next year?
Yeah, they're going to pitch. I know Justin Verlander, he desperately wants to be in that Hall of Fame. And Max Scherzer, to me, you're going to have to be a team for both of these guys that's patient. The last couple of years, I know Justin Verlander coming back from the surgery, the Tommy John surgery. My guess would be it's going to be a heavy incentive-laden compensation kind of a deal, maybe a one-year deal with an option with innings or starts that are being made. They both want to pitch. They're both big game guys, but I think both right now, I don't think either one you want to say, okay, we're going to acquire one of these two guys and we're going to get somewhere between 150 and 190 innings. I'm not sure that's the case, but if you have a good starting rotation and you're looking for a guy like, let's say what the Dodgers do. They have 7 different options that they use to start the season. Guys start the year on IL. They're not worried about rushing guys. If you can be patient and bring these two guys in and give them a incentive-laden deal, they want to pitch, they'll find a place to pitch.
Realistic expectations on both sides. You know one guy who's not a free agent right now? That's Cody Bellinger. He exercised his option and will be back on the north side of Chicago in 2025. What does Dan expect from him? And can the Cubs win the NL Central? Answers next. Well, in case you missed this on Saturday, our pal John Heyman over on X putting this out. Cody Bellinger opts in to stay with the Cubs. He has $52.5 million over 2 years left and an opt-out after 2025 with $25 million and $5 million buyout left after next season. So, Dan, probably not the biggest surprise that Cody Bellinger has exercised his option and will stay, but what are your expectations, not just for the 29-year-old Bellinger, but for the rest of this Cubs team?
Very interesting roster. I thought when the season started, I looked at their starting pitching. Justin Steele, one of the top left-handers in baseball, had that hamstring issue early on. He missed several weeks with that hamstring. Sneaky good pitching. Jamison Tyone was really good at the end of the year. And you look at that lineup, Nico Hoerner, solid player at second base. He's been able to stay healthy and stay on the field. You take a look at this lineup for the Cubs. Dansby Swanson, he is what he is. He's a staple at shortstop. Seiya Suzuki was just burst on the scene when they signed him out of Japan. He was really good. He spent some time on the IL. Isaac Paredes was a little bit of a disappointment when they acquired him. I'm a big fan of Nico Hoerner. And Pete Crow Armstrong, you could make a case, might be the best defensive center fielder in the game of baseball right now. They're not that far away from being good, and one of the reasons is the NL Central top to bottom really isn't all that solid. I think a team to watch for with Terry Francona, and I look at the Reds, and they're a team, if you're looking at sheer raw talent, they're a team that might have the most talent in the division. Very disappointing year for the Reds. They made a managerial change. David Bell was let go. They brought in Tito Francona. The Pirates, the bottom of that division. If they go out and spend some money and get some offense to go along with the young starting pitching they have, that division is upside down wide open. From what we're hearing, the Cardinals might be trying to move some of their older players. Paul Goldschmidt's a free agent. There's word they might move Nolan Arenado on the trade market. So that division is upside down. Any of those teams could win it.
I had a conversation with Ollie Marble open weekend when they were playing the Dodgers in LA, and we were both having the same exact conversation. We had no idea what was about to unfold in the NL Central, and I think a lot of us were surprised by what happened, especially with the Reds underperforming, to your point. I love that you mentioned Pete Crow Armstrong, by the way, PCA, one of the most fun defensive players to watch. I have to ask you this, though. Will the Cubs win the NL Central, knowing what you know right now?
Right now, unless they make some adjustments and bring some players in, I don't think so. I'll tell you what I do like. They acquired Nate Pearson from the Blue Jays, and I thought he was really good. You look at that Cubs bullpen, it was a little bit up and down. Almonte had pockets of good. Hodge was actually really good the last several weeks of the season. Nate Pearson, to me, is a guy that's really interesting. Always had a big arm. The Blue Jays were very patient with him. The Cubs acquired him. I think he's a guy that I think down the road, I don't know if he can pitch every other day and be a ninth inning guy, power arm, 98 to 100, good hard breaking ball. Bullpen, interesting, but I think they need to make some upgrades.
Yeah, it's like close your eyes, throw a dart at the board of the NL Central, and that team could win. Your guess is as good as mine. All right, some news here on Devin Williams. Speaking of the NL Central, Jeff Passan putting this out on X. The Milwaukee Brewers declined closer Devin Williams' club option for $10.5 million, sources tell ESPN. He'll receive a $250,000 buyout as Williams remains with the Brewers. Will be in his final year of arbitration and is expected to make between $8 and $9 million. He's a trade candidate as well. Interesting, the plot thickens. Well, speaking of relievers, you already heard about Dan Plesac's top available starters, but what about the bullpen guys? Yeah, it's a long list of free agents, but which ones are good enough to make the cut for Dan? Find out